Hi, hey, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I appreciate you stopping on by. I have 6 of the thumbnails I've made so far for my art final, for my portfolio final specifically. Actually, that's my only art class where I draw, so there's that. My favorites are 4 through 6, and today I kind of want to just flesh them out a little bit more, play with them. My teacher is probably going to have the final say in which one I actually go for the entire final, but I do want to do all of these sketches eventually, so I'm just going to flesh them out a little bit, play with them, kind of make sure I'm liking the composition and how they fit when they're in the full screen frame, not just these little boxes. I do have a fondness for this one. I just don't really feel like it's filling up the space how I want, and I want to have more time to dedicate to it. One is just out of the picture, no, and I do really like this one, but it feels a lot like a illustration I did my first ever piece on chronic illness, like on a technical level, and so I want to put a lot more time into this and think about it more. So it's going to be 4 through 6. As always, sorry if you can hear the dogs. I'll do my best to edit them out. I've already gone through and made them all on separate layers so I can figure out what I want to do with them. But I think I want to start with 4. So, yeah. As always with my work in portfolio class is another piece on aspects of living with chronic illness. So, generally speaking, I wanted this piece to touch on the kind of experience that comes with being chronically ill but not being religious. So I don't wish to be contentious with anybody who is religious here, and this isn't necessarily a negative perception on any religious followers I have. It's more so just a personal experience as a chronically ill person that's generally very demoralizing and upsetting to experience, and I think that we can hopefully understand that you can be a good person and your words can also have these effects on people. And so this one, I was particularly wanting to touch on the experience of when you're chronically ill, and some of the first stuff you hear when you have religious family members is the entire God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors, praying will save you, the general process of if you find God, he will save you. And while for some people faith brings a lot of comfort, for me personally, in my experience being chronically ill as a child and having my disability consume me at a point where I was maybe not religious, but I did have no strong opinion on religion at the time. Having my chronic illness start really impacting my daily life and my ability to have friendships at a time where I had no opinion on the matter, it felt kind of like not being good enough, and it's a hard thing to experience as a child with a chronic illness, that you'll feel better if you just believe hard enough. And this kind of idea that it just feels like you're not religious enough. God doesn't love you enough, kind of is how it feels. It's perhaps probably never the intention of the people who are saying these things to make individuals feel that way. It's just something that I've spent my entire life with. There has been no getting away from this idea that I'm not religious enough, and that's why I'm still chronically ill. And it's because God is testing me and my ability to kind of, I guess, persevere. I'm not sure. There's personally for me been very little explanation as to what exactly I'm being tested on in my life experiences. So if, I don't know, if you're religious and you actually know what is meant by that, I'm very open. I personally exist without a faith. It's just not something that I feel like I really need or want, and good on people who have it. So I hope that's something that we can be respectful about, especially in the comments. I don't want anybody being rude about religion and other people's faith down below, please. I've never had any rude comments, I don't think. I don't think I ever have. So I don't really expect anybody to be nasty, but still, for the sake of ensuring everything is like fine and all that, I do want to make sure it's very clear that I don't condone any kind of hate speech and negative attitudes towards other people. I do, however, believe in very open and honest discussions, so if you want to have a bit more of a respectful debate about something, as long as both parties are consenting and informed, that's fine. In my community, for the most part, I will, of course, make sure nothing nasty comes of it. But yeah, just to make sure that everyone understands before they get into the sections. I don't love that thigh, but that's okay. This is just the fleshing out of a thumbnail to see how I feel about it, so I am liking it a lot. And if anybody else has had that kind of experience, I do want people to understand that when people who aren't chronically ill don't know how to treat and interact and be respectful of chronically ill people, and they don't know our lived experiences, and oftentimes they can't fathom how these experiences manifest. So please understand that while oftentimes it's hurtful and it can feel very demoralizing and humiliating, that they probably weren't intending for you to feel that way. I know personally in my life the people who have said those things to me are not people whom you can necessarily address why that's hurtful and why it makes you feel those ways, and it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna be okay. And I understand. And I don't actually know if anybody in my audience is chronically ill, so maybe I'm talking to nobody, but I wish that when I was younger, somebody had explained to me why people felt okay saying that and why people believed that and what was wrong with me, you know, because I was probably 6 the first time, so, you know, it's always been something that lightly bothers me. And I do come from the academic space where talking about religion in this way is not really an issue. And I'm aware that I'm now sitting on a public platform where people don't necessarily enter the space with intentions of having like these types of conversations. So I am coming from a slightly different perspective on how these interactions are usually held, but equally so, I think that I hopefully am managing this appropriately. But if I'm not, let me know and I will remedy, because I do understand that I'm not able to have this and host this discussion live with direct interactions. So I think that this is a phase that I'm not going to like right away. I think this is something I'd have to work on a lot more than just trying to trying to feel out a thumbnail. I think I want to start this face completely over. Actually, let's see. I had a lot more sweeping gestures in my thumbnail, and I think one, they didn't really align with where I wanted it to go. There we go. That gives more space for that other eye that I wanted to be bigger. I also don't have as large of eyes as I think I was going for, and it definitely doesn't depict the exhaustion that kind of comes with it. So yeah, it is something that I don't necessarily even know how common of an experience it is. It's just been very common in my life, and it's something that I don't have chronically ill people to talk to, like in my personal life, where we can vent about these experiences. And so it's something that artistically I have been wanting to explore for a while, to get to I don't know, just get it off my chest, kind of. I know that's kind of silly for something that's going to be a digitally done, but still a like 9x11 illustration, to just want to get something off your chest. But you're gonna get it off your chest over the course of like a 17-hour drawing probably. But it's something that I think that's a big part of being an artist, I guess. Just being able to creatively express feelings. I don't like this face shape. That's what's wrong. I don't like the nose either, but the face shape and the nose together is kind of giving a cartoon feeling that's... I can't think of what cartoon it would be, but it's just not me. But that almost always happens the first go of drawing the face shape. I like to place my features in a very particular way in reference to the face, and my thumbnailing usually doesn't actually attribute for that. I think I want the eyes and nose lower too. I think I give people like short faces, or maybe like large foreheads. Like I always feel like their features end up kind of like squished on their face, but I'm like, it's perfect. I don't know. Maybe not. I want this to cut in more. Yeah, that's a bit better. It feels a bit better at least. So that's all that matters. This ear's a bit short now though. It was short from the beginning actually, but you know, I don't think I've ever seen someone like critique an ear. Like seriously critique an ear before. It's an odd thing to think about. I don't think I've ever seen someone critique an ear before. But yeah. So the wings are definitely off kilter, off from where they should be. I do want stray feathers, so I could just add those now, or some of them. Yeah, this wing should have always been coming up from behind the head more. I'm not sure how I want to approach them, if I want them to be more intense and gothic, if I want them to feel like all-consuming, or if I want them to be pillowy and eroding, because it is about that process of feeling like. At least when I was a kid, this was maybe one of the first steps where I like completely decided that religion was not for me, was people telling me basically that I don't believe in God enough and that's why I'm suffering. That kind of ideology might have been the point in my childhood where I really just decided that I'm completely not interested in religion, personally. So, maybe this has more to me than I had originally realized. I do want this to be kind of thick and misshapen. I don't think I want it to be this thick in the final piece, but I do want it to be barbed wire. I've never drawn barbed wire before, but for a first go, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Kind of cute. Kind of liking the barbed wire. Maybe vacancy. Maybe there is no iris. Maybe we just add highlights and leave it like that. I think that kind of works. Let's see. Yeah, I do think that is. I think I'd be adding a lot of hatching. This would obviously be more disappearing behind the hair, but yeah, one that cuts across like this actually. Yeah, I like this. This will be blood. I should have started with that. Probably. We'll have some feathers floating in it. These ones will be soggy. They'll be kind of like damping down and stuff. But yeah, if I had some over there actually. Yeah, I do like this concept. I do know that I'm safe to engage with this concept at college without much issue. I do have a few chronically ill classmates who have very much felt good about my previous pieces and experienced solidarity with me in those capacities. This is an area I need to figure out. I'm not sure how I want to do it or execute it, because it's a little bit more, like, I want the shoulder here more. I guess I'll just, I need the elbow level with the ribs anywhere, and that's not really where we're at. Yeah, I'll get a better reference for this. I do want more feathers overlapping, probably in the shoulder regions, popping out through the hair and stuff like that. Probably for the sake of visual appeal and drawing the eye, I'll have some, like, floating around. I don't know how much I want to overall get into this. I might bring this other arm forward still. I'm not entirely certain, but I'm liking these. I am gonna group them so I can just boink. This one, maybe I shouldn't have started my video with the one on religion. But that's an aside. For this one, I wanted to touch on feelings of rage within chronic illness. And I think I want to go to my usual lining brush. I wanted to touch on feelings of rage within chronic illness. I wanted to do something that allowed me to write an artist statement going over and kind of discussing the experiences of being constantly doubted and constantly ignored within and by medical professionals, and a process of just how hard it is to get seen and to get diagnosed and treated for anything. It's not even like you have a diagnosis you don't want to be chronically ill. And I think that's something people don't tend to understand when people talk about chronic illnesses and their experiences with doctors, is we don't want to be chronically ill. We are, and what we want is treatment. We want to experience life as normally as possible, despite, in a sense, normalcy being kind of removed from us by our illnesses a lot of the time. So I don't think I've ever really gone over and kind of worked on or discussed kind of the ways that it feels like everything and everybody is constantly failing you in the medical profession as you go from doctor to doctor, and you get denied or misdiagnosed over and over again, or they try to give you medications and drugs you've already been on and they didn't work because it was for a bad diagnosis, because they don't really want to acknowledge or approach the tough diagnoses that sometimes you need. I don't really know what it is about doctors and chronic illnesses where it's so difficult to just get treatment. It's not like we want to be medicated forever. It's not like we want to be in pain. It's not like we're happy to get tossed around by doctors for years and years on end with no actual, like, shining light of when we'll finally be able to just start managing a real diagnosis and being able to truly know why. Why does it feel like my body is fighting me and failing me, kind of stuff? You know what I mean? Maybe you don't. I guess that's kind of a weird thing to ask. But yeah, so that's what this one was about. I was kind of approaching it from a more statue-like perspective. I might color this in the feeling of marble with some harsh light on it, like a harsh red light. Not sure about it though. I very much do really like this one. I don't know how much I want to work on it for class. I don't know how much my teacher is going to appreciate a more marble kind of coloring scheme after my last two. Forgot to delete the border. Oops. My teacher very much is encouraging me on my pursuit of these types of illustrations. She thinks they're my strongest work I've ever made, and I've been her student for a very long time. She was the first teacher I took art with when I started college. I saw that she was teaching comics, and I thought that sounded pretty fun, so I took comics. She was my teacher, and I've had her every semester since. She's my advisor for my degree and all of that, so, she's seen my work really evolve over the years. Not that my work was particularly good when I started as her student. I had been self-taught for a really long time. Not that that makes your work bad, but I wasn't doing it in a way where I was really progressing how I probably could have been if I had done it in an intelligent and more structured manner. I wish I had maybe bought an art book before starting college to try and develop skills. And that's actually something that I really wish I had worked on more in college. Now that I'm halfway through my final year, I wish I had put a little bit more effort into exploring how to do emotions. This was the first time I've tried to do rage, and I don't know how well I'm doing. It feels like I'm doing good. I think that this is pretty indicative of what rage looks like, at least more so on me. I just don't know if I'm actually hitting home that feeling in a way that will be good and comforting for fellow spoonies, I guess you could say, I think that the issue with this piece in terms of a general audience is they're the people more likely that aren't aware of how difficult this is and how exhausting this becomes. So, it's not their experience, and that's okay. But I think that on a general level, this is going to be the least relatable pieces I've done on chronic illness, and that's something I am kind of worried about. I'm pretty used to my illustrations being something where even if people don't relate to it, it looks pretty and it feels good, and I'm not really sure how pretty this will be in the end, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how this one's going to be in terms of being receptive for other people. And it looks really bad without the base sketch, but that's fine, because I'm mostly trying to refine shapes. But yeah, I do like it. I do think I want to cut this line out of the final illustration, so let's go down here and cut that out. Maybe I don't need to. I didn't lower the opacity, right? I did not. Nice. Okay, I think what I need to do is, I did not sketch in Clean Sketch, really. Oh, that's usually what I sketch in. I don't know what pencil this would have been. I need it to be a little bit more like this. I also need to make this tame cut a little bit softer. So let's see. Let's try going. Yeah, so the issue here is I was going for a more marble approach even when I was still sketching, and I don't really want, on the chronic illness front, the look of particularly being muscular. I'm sure there are a lot of chronically ill people who are capable of pulling off muscles. A lot of my illustrations are based more in my experience so that they can remain authentic and unbiased by research. And so when it comes to it, I try to keep my work at least centered in a similar enough body to mine, as in not muscular and not particularly squishy either. I guess it's weird to say, but I've been very stagnant in my life due to my inability to do stuff. I can only do so much with my chronic illness. And so a lot of life for me is kind of just existing. So I don't really work out much. I do the best I can kind of stuff. And I just kind of maintain a very, very average body. And so I try to keep things that way. I try to keep the bodies average to my experience as well, because at least then I know that I'm depicting something realistic and I'm not pushing anything a little bit too far. I'm always very, very anxious to perhaps depict something that others would think looks like a different type of illness, particularly more eating related illnesses. I try to be very cautious about that because I don't have one, and so I don't want people to look at my work and misinterpret me as having one, and then thinking that I'm speaking from an experience that I don't have, which is something that's like very important to me. I speak from my own experience about these topics, and until I have somebody willing to completely corroborate and help me through an artistic design that will be, I guess, more so depicting something I haven't directly experienced myself, at least to my knowledge, I want to keep it in my own experience. So, my own experience. This one's just been kind of a little bit more related to stuff I've been dealing with, talking about in class a lot. It's not that I don't like talking about this stuff, but it does get a little bit exhausting, generally speaking. Not on the disability front, but the art history kind of front. Depictions of nude women in art is obviously a very prevalent topic in art history. There's a lot of it, and that's okay. For sometimes there's ethics around it, there's discussions to be had about women artists, the systems that made it hard for women, particularly in America and European countries, to be artists, and the different structures in other countries that made it hard for women of different situations and different ethnic backgrounds, all of that jazz. A lot to unpack, and a lot that I would much prefer to just link reading on if anyone's interested in some wonderful articles about women artists and the systems that held them back. I have a lot of experience talking about that. It's a very common topic in my art history classes that I go over. But this piece is more so related to women in art being so sexualized, being these gorgeous things for people to look at, unattainably beautiful women to hang up in your house and show to your homeboys when they come over. Or, I don't know, I guess your wife wasn't allowed to look at it, not because it's scandalous, but because women were too pure to ever look at this type of art. I'm not kidding. A lot of the American front, women couldn't look at this art, not because it's scandalous, my wife will be mad at me, but because women couldn't handle the shock of it, that type of stuff. I wanted to broach a topic that's very much entertaining and obnoxious to me, which is the sexualization of disabled bodies, and how there's this, I think I want it to be semi-see-through, so I do think I want to add very faintly. So, women are perceived quite strongly as being hypersexual, these beautiful damsels and stuff in a lot of art. Yeah, we know. Disabled bodies are sexualized in a very different manner. Oftentimes it's more so touching on and approaching touching on these ideas of fragility and these sorts of ideas. So in this one, I wanted to more so just touch on how being disabled is both a thing of extreme sexualization and the ultimate femininity, whilst also being hideous and undesirable and being something nobody wants. Nobody wants a disabled partner. Nobody hopes for a disabled partner, right? But there's something so innately sexualized in the inability, your existence as a disabled person, and kind of just the way it feels like a commodification and a fetishization of the body on the principles of disability. I've had a little bit less experience with this personally within my disability, a little less, not none, under the fact that I don't quite yet require mobility aids, so I am a bit more invisibly ill. I'm less noticeably ill. There are some wonderful artists of different facets that have really, really, really bad experiences online with their disability and the sexualization that people cause them. I'm thinking of Gabby Cosplay right now. But people say vulgar things about disabled people and their abilities to get away and things like that. And it's an unfortunate part of being an artist online and disabled, and I'm sure non-artists have bad experiences like this too with chronic illnesses and disabilities, so I just don't engage with that part of the internet as much. I wanted to touch on that a bit though, because it is something that kind of taunts me as a concept a lot of the time, and I've always kind of wondered what it would have been like if art history had been more open for artists of different experiences to get to come forward. I really don't know if I want this to be able to like sink into the eyes more, if I want it looser, because I don't like this ear. This ear is bothering me, because I could definitely frame it more around the head. The hair is probably sticking up more like that. You might be able to faintly see it. I don't know. I'm still on the fence about how I want to approach if this is sheer or not. Do I want to see the eyebrows through? I'm not sure. This one I think is going to be a really massive learning curve for me on the actual like front of working on doing a like sheer fabric and getting that coloring correct, but I'm not sure. These two can now go in their own nice grouping. Those are my main three. So ultimately, if you're interested in seeing any of these three come to life pretty soon, one of them is going to come to life pretty soon. It'll be finished at the very, very latest, the middle of December, because that's when finals are. And if you guys have one of the 2 through 6 you want to see done after my next one, let me know down below. I generally ensure when I'm creating artwork, especially of topics that are a little bit more difficult and hard-hitting to grasp, I do make sure that the art is ultimately pretty and capable of standing on its own, regardless of if you know what the art was meant to be about. My piece, Desolate Consumption, is very, very intensely about disability. It's one of the ones that hit my classmates and my peers the hardest when it came to my artist statement. You can read my artist statement. It's available for free viewing on Ko-fi. That's just where I put all of my artist statements because they don't really fit in descriptions and stuff. But this piece is very capable of standing alone. It's just also got a very hard-hitting story to it if you're interested in engaging with that. Most of my pieces do have these sorts of things. Even my non-disability work, this is not one of my non-disability work, my piece on OCD, it stands without an artist statement and without that meaning, right? So ultimately, if you're interested in seeing any of these as a concept come to life, if you look at these thumbnails and you think, wow, I really like that one, let me know, because it's going to be a beautiful piece, even if you don't know the backstory. That I will make sure of. That is something that's very important to my work, because I need my work to not only say something, but I need it to grab your attention, right? It's not going to get the message across if it doesn't look good in the process. So if you're interested in any of these are on the table. This one's going to have a lot more hands. I want this to be more of a looking up-ish and being kind of torn apart by hands. So I do want hands in this region grabbing at, I'm considering clothes, I'm considering like very baggy sweatpants and like a crop top or something. Not that this is particularly well rendered clothing, but I'm considering clothes and having that being tugged at instead. But if not, it's going to be the ripping of flesh, and it's going to touch on a theme kind of similar to desolate consumption, if you're interested. This one looks a lot like my first disability work, and I have multiple feelings on where I want to go with it, so I'm not entirely sure where it's going to end up in concept. But yeah, 2 through 6 are ones I'm working on. This one was going to be kind of more about being enslaved by your body and feeling bound to the wills of others as you grow sicker and stuff like that. So I don't like how I went about approaching the illustration of it though. So yeah, interested in any of these, let me know down below. If you're interested in seeing any of my other work, be sure to subscribe. I do not just do disability art, as I kind of briefly skimmed past. I also have OCs that I draw all the time, and I have fun little doodles, character design challenges that I assign myself. My work is not fully on disability if this is your first time here, but I suppose that's all I have for this video. Just wanted to do a chill rainy day thumbnail play around. And so ultimately, if you like this video, like it. If you don't, dislike it. I appreciate likes, comments, shares. If you want to subscribe, go for it. If you don't want to do any of that, I totally understand. And all of this aside, have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. And I really appreciate you sitting through the entirety of this video. So, bye-bye.